The night sky above the New Mexico desert was clear and filled with stars. Inside the Horizon Deep Space Monitoring Station, Bill Taylor leaned back in his chair and sipped his lukewarm coffee. The overnight shift was usually quiet, just how he liked it. A soft beep from his computer broke the silence. Bill set down his mug and leaned forward. The screen showed an unusual reading from one of the long-range scanners pointed beyond Pluto. "That's odd," he mumbled, typing commands to check the data again. The beep repeated. The same strange energy pattern appeared on his screen. Bill called over to his coworker. "Hey Mark, can you check this reading? I'm picking up something weird past Pluto's orbit." Mark rolled his chair over and squinted at the screen. "Probably just a glitch. Run the backup systems." Bill did as suggested, but the backup systems showed the same thing. "Still there, and look, it's moving." Mark sat up, straighter now. "Moving? How fast?" After some quick calculations, Bill's face paled. "Too fast. Way too fast for any natural object." "Call Dr. Wilson," Mark said. "Now." 3 hours later, Dr. Helen Wilson stood before a room full of government officials and military personnel. The room was tense as she showed them the data from the Horizon Station. "These objects are artificial in nature," she explained, pointing to the images on the large screen. "They're moving at speeds our current technology can't match, and they're headed directly toward our solar system." A man in a crisp military uniform stood up. "Hostile intent?" "Unknown, Major Walker," Dr. Wilson replied. "But they're not responding to any of our attempts at communication." Tom Walker, head of Earth's newly formed Unified Defense Force, nodded grimly. "How long until they reach Earth?" "At their current speed?" "About 3 weeks." The room erupted in worried voices. Walker raised his hand for silence. "Dr. Wilson, what's your professional opinion? Are we looking at a first contact situation or something else?" Wilson hesitated. "The formation they're traveling in suggests organization and purpose. I'd say this isn't random exploration." Just then, an aide rushed into the room and handed a tablet to Dr. Wilson. Her face grew serious as she read. "We just received a transmission," she announced. "It appears to be from the approaching fleet." She pressed a button and a harsh mechanical voice filled the room. "Attention, inhabitants of the third planet. Your resources are now property of the Stellar Dominion. Resistance is futile. Prepare for our arrival and your submission." A heavy silence fell over the room. Major Walker was the first to speak. "Well, I guess that answers the hostile intent question." The news spread across the world like wildfire. Panic followed. People flooded stores for supplies. Some fled cities, for the countryside. Others held prayer meetings or end-of-the-world parties. In Washington, President Adams addressed the United Nations via video call. "The threat we face is not to any one nation but to all of humanity," he said, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "This is the moment to put aside our differences and stand together." For once, the world listened. Within 48 hours, the Earth Defense Initiative was formed, bringing together the best military minds and scientists from around the globe. Major Tom Walker stared at the space maps spread across the table in the Pentagon's underground command center. Representatives from Russia, China, the European Union, and a dozen other nations stood with him. "They'll come through here," Walker said, pointing to an area between Mars and Jupiter. "We need to be ready." "Ready how?" asked the Russian general. "Your own scientists say their technology is far beyond ours." "Maybe so," Walker admitted. "But they don't know our solar system like we do, and they've never faced humans before." A Chinese military official shook her head. "Our most powerful weapons can barely reach Mars, let alone stop a fleet beyond it. Then we don't fight them head-on," Walker replied. "We fight smarter, not harder." At NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, Dr. Anna Miller worked without sleep. Her team had been analyzing the alien transmission for days. "Look at these patterns," she told her colleague, Dr. Pete Brown. "Their communication technology uses a specific radiation frequency to transmit data." "So?" Pete asked. "So that might tell us something about their biology or their technology," Anna explained. "All life evolves to function within its environment. If they use these frequencies, they might be particularly sensitive to them. Pete understood immediately. Or sensitive to frequencies they don't use, like how we developed to handle visible light but not X-rays. Anna nodded excitedly. Exactly. And look at this. When our deep space probes sent out signals on certain bands, we got fluctuations in their ship formations. They reacted? Or their systems did, Anna said. I think we might have found a weakness. On the moon's far side, a small team worked quickly to establish a forward base. Jack Stone, a veteran astronaut, directed the setup of special equipment sent up from Earth. Careful with those panels, he called to his team. If Dr. Miller is right, these might be our best defense. Through his helmet visor, Jack looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the alien fleet was coming closer. Earth looked small and fragile from here. His radio crackled. Stone, this is Walker. How's progress? On schedule, sir. The array will be operational in 12 hours. Good. Our satellites are in position near Mars orbit. The plan is coming together. Jack hoped it would be enough. Commander Vex stood on the bridge of the Dominion flagship, watching the primitive solar system grow larger on the main view screen. This conquest would be simple like the dozens before it. Status report, Vex ordered. His second-in-command responded promptly. The third planet continues to broadcast chaotic communications, Commander. They appear disorganized and frightened. As they should be, Vex said with satisfaction. Any signs of unified defense? None worth noting. They've launched some simple satellites, but nothing that poses a threat to our shields. Vex made a sound of contempt. This species hasn't even colonized its neighboring planets. They'll make good labor for the mines. We've detected unusual radiation patterns from their star, the science officer noted. Irrelevant, Vex dismissed. Adjust shields as needed. We'll be past their fourth planet soon enough. Back on Earth, Major Walker watched the holographic display showing the alien fleet's approach. They had passed Neptune's orbit and were heading inward quickly. They're taking the bait, he said to President Adams, who stood beside him. They're not even bothering to destroy our satellites. And Dr. Miller's theory? The president asked. Walker smiled grimly. About to be tested. In the adjacent room, Anna Miller calibrated the final settings on her equipment. Her discovery had been surprising, but made perfect sense in hindsight. The aliens came from a star system with different radiation patterns than our sun. Their technology, and possibly their biology, had evolved accordingly. We're ready, she announced. The network is online. Walker nodded. Begin the operation. Anna pressed the activation key. Across the solar system, hundreds of specially designed satellites powered up. Each began emitting the precise radiation frequencies her team had identified as potentially disruptive to alien systems. It was a solar system-wide trap, with Mars orbit as the trigger point. On the main screen, they watched the alien fleet continue its approach, unaware of what awaited them. The first ships were now crossing into the outer edges of the radiation web. Now we wait, Walker said, quietly. And hope. The fate of humanity hung in the balance as the stars continued their silent watch over the developing battle. The aliens had come to conquer Earth, but they would have to get past Mars first, and humanity had decided that wouldn't happen. The news about the alien fleet spread to every corner of Earth. For the first time in history, all TV channels showed the same thing. People huddled around screens in homes, bars, and town squares. The message was clear. An alien force was coming to take over Earth. In New York, the United Nations building was busier than ever before. Guards checked IDs as world leaders hurried inside. No cameras were allowed in the main meeting room where Major Tom Walker stood before the gathered representatives. We have 3 weeks, Walker said, his voice firm. 3 weeks to prepare for an enemy more advanced than anything we've faced. A woman from Brazil stood up. What chance do we have? Their ships can travel faster than anything we've built, Walker nodded. They're ahead of us in some ways. But we have advantages too. We know our solar system. We know what the sun can do. And we're fighting for our home. The room grew quiet. Then an older man from Japan spoke up. My grandfather told stories of how small forces defeated larger ones through clever thinking. Perhaps this is such a time. Walker smiled for the first time that day. Exactly. We don't need to match their technology. We need to use what we have, in ways they won't expect. By the end of the meeting, the Earth Defense Initiative was more than just an idea. It was a plan with global support. Every nation would play a part. Dr. Anna Miller hadn't slept in 2 days. Her lab at NASA was filled with empty coffee cups and half-eaten sandwiches. She barely noticed when Major Walker walked in. "Any progress?" he asked. Anna looked up from her computer. "Yes, look at this." She showed him a screen with colorful patterns. "These are the communication signals the aliens are using. See how they avoid certain frequencies? I think those frequencies might hurt them or their systems." Walker leaned closer. "You mean we've found a weakness?" "Maybe." Anna pointed to another screen. "Their ships changed course slightly when our Jupiter probe sent out signals on this band. It was small, but it happened every time. Can we use this?" Anna nodded slowly. "If we can create enough radiation on these frequencies throughout the solar system, yes, I think we can hurt them. Maybe even stop them." Walker put a hand on her shoulder. "This might save us all, Dr. Miller. Get whatever you need. Money is no object." In underground bases around the world, soldiers and scientists worked together. Old enemies now shared information and resources. Russian rocket engineers worked with American computer experts. Chinese factory workers built parts designed by European scientists. Colonel Ray Jones walked through one such base near London. At 60 years old, he had been called back from retirement. Jones was known for thinking differently about battle. "Show me what we've got," he said to the team leader. The young woman led him to a large table covered with blueprints. "These are the satellites we're building. They'll create a web of radiation throughout the solar system, focused especially around Mars' orbit." Jones studied the plans. "How many can we launch?" "With every nation helping, hundreds, maybe 1,000. Jones nodded approvingly. "The aliens will see them, but they won't know what they're for until it's too late." "Will it be enough?" the woman asked quietly. Jones didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "In war, surprise is sometimes better than strength. We're about to surprise them very badly." On the moon base, Jack Stone and his team worked in the low gravity to set up huge panels that looked like solar arrays. But these weren't for collecting energy. They were for sending it out in very specific ways. Jack's radio crackled. "Stone, how's progress?" It was Walker checking in from Earth. "Almost done, sir. These arrays will hit them with exactly what Dr. Miller prescribed." "Good. The satellites are being launched now. Everything needs to be ready in 2 weeks." Jack looked up at the Earth hanging in the black sky. So beautiful. So fragile. "We won't let you down," he promised, though he wasn't sure if he was talking to Walker or to Earth itself. All around the world, rocket launches lit up the sky day and night. Some carried satellites, others took supplies to the moon base. People watched and hoped. In a small town in Kansas, a family stood in their backyard watching a bright rocket climb into the evening sky. "Is that going to stop the aliens, Dad?" a young boy asked. His father put an arm around him. "That's part of it, son. Everyone's working together now." "Are you scared?" The father looked down at his son. "Yes, but I'm proud too. Humans are pretty amazing when we work together." Commander Vex watched the activity around the blue planet with growing interest. His ship's sensors showed numerous launches leaving the planet's surface. "They are unusually active," he commented to his science officer. "Primitive efforts," the officer replied. "Their rockets use chemical fuel. The objects they're launching have minimal shielding. No weapons we can detect." Vex made a sound of amusement. "Perhaps they're sending us gifts to earn our mercy." The crew laughed. None of them believed this tiny world could pose any threat to the mighty Dominion fleet. "Their sun produces unusual radiation patterns," the science officer noted. "Different from our home system. Is it a concern?" Vex asked. "No, Commander, our shields are adjusted. Though some of the radiation Interesting. Vex dismissed the comment. Stay alert, but don't be concerned. This world will fall like all the others. Back on Earth, in the main control room of the Earth Defense Initiative, Walker gathered his top team. The wall screen showed the alien fleet passing Jupiter's orbit. 1 week until they reach our trap near Mars, he said. Are we ready? Dr. Miller nodded. The satellites are in position. The moon base is operational. We can create a radiation field that should severely damage their systems. Colonel Jones added, and if it works, we'll follow up with everything we've got. Missiles, lasers, whatever, can reach them. Walker looked around the room at the faces of scientists and soldiers from dozens of countries. For thousands of years, humans fought each other, he said. We've got pretty good at it. Now we'll show these aliens what happens when all that fighting skill works together. A young technician spoke up. Sir, we're getting readings from our outer satellites. The alien fleet has entered the first detection zone. Everyone turned to the main screen. Tiny dots representing the alien ships moved steadily toward the inner solar system. Any reaction? Walker asked. Not yet, sir. They don't seem to notice anything. Walker nodded. Good. Let them come a little closer. Dr. Miller looked nervous. The effect will be stronger when more satellites can reach them. But if they detect what we're doing too soon, they won't, Colonel Jones said confidently. They think we're primitives. That's their mistake. Walker looked at the screen where Earth was a small blue dot. 1 week, he said quietly. 1 week, to save everything. Around the room, humans from every nation and background stood together, united by a common purpose. For the first time in history, humanity wasn't fighting itself, but standing as one against a threat from the stars. The greatest battle in human history was about to begin. The aliens had come to conquer Earth, but first, they had to get past Mars. And humanity had decided that wouldn't happen. Dr. Anna Miller stared at her computer screen, rubbing her tired eyes. She hadn't left the NASA lab in 3 days. The data patterns from the alien ships filled her screen with colored lines and numbers. You need sleep, said Pete, placing a fresh cup of coffee beside her. Anna shook her head. No time. Look at this. She pointed to a pattern on her screen. I've been studying their communication signals. The aliens evolved around a different kind of star than our sun. What does that mean for us? Pete asked. It means they're not used to certain kinds of radiation that our sun makes naturally. Anna's eyes lit up despite her tiredness. It's like, imagine if you lived your whole life in a place with no loud noises, then suddenly heard a rock concert. It would hurt, right? Pete nodded slowly. And we can create that noise for them? Yes. Our satellites can boost specific radiation types from the sun, types they've shown sensitivity to. Anna smiled. It won't destroy their ships directly, but it might disable their systems enough to make them vulnerable. Pete looked impressed. You just found their weakness. In the Pentagon War Room, Colonel Ray Jones stood before a group of military leaders from around the world. A large screen behind him showed the solar system and the approaching alien fleet. A direct attack won't work, Jones explained. Their ships would destroy our missiles before they got close, so we fight differently. He pointed to the area between Jupiter and Mars. We've positioned our satellites throughout this region. They look harmless, just simple observation devices. The aliens won't bother destroying them. How will simple satellites stop an invasion fleet? Asked a general from India. Jones smiled. Because they're not simple. They're radiation amplifiers, designed by Dr. Miller's team. Together, they'll create a web of energy that targets the alien's weakness. He pressed a button, and the screen showed a simulation of waves spreading through space. Think of it as a trap. We let them walk right into it, thinking there's no danger. Then we spring it when they're too deep to escape easily. A Russian commander nodded with approval. A classic ambush. Exactly, Jones said, but on a solar system scale. Jack Stone floated outside the moon base, making final adjustments to a large array of panels. Earth hung in the black sky above him, blue and peaceful. Through his helmet radio, he heard the voice of his teammate Lisa. Final panel is aligned, Jack. We're ready here. Good work, Jack replied. Let's get inside. Walker wants a full system test in 1 hour. Once back inside the base, Jack joined his team in the control room. The screen showed the massive radiation amplifiers they had built on the moon's surface. These will hit them from behind, Jack explained to a new team member, while the satellites hit them from all other directions. Nowhere to run. Will it be enough? The newcomer asked. Jack's face grew serious. It has to be. Commander Vex stood on the bridge of the Dominion flagship, watching the planets of this primitive solar system grow larger on the view screen. They had passed the gas giant with its many moons and were approaching the inner system. Status report, Vex ordered. All systems normal, Commander, his second-in-command reported. We've detected numerous small objects in orbit around the fourth planet. Simple satellites as expected from a low-tech species. Vex nodded. And the third planet? Still broadcasting chaotic messages. Their leaders are trying to maintain order, but we detect widespread fear. This pleased Vex. Fear made conquest easier. Scared beings didn't fight well. Prepare the conquest protocols, he ordered. We'll be at the third planet in 5 days. The science officer approached cautiously. Commander, I'm detecting unusual solar radiation patterns in the space ahead. Explain. Our sun doesn't produce these specific frequencies. Our ships aren't designed to shield against them. Vex considered this briefly. Will it damage our ships? Unlikely, Commander, but it might cause minor systems interference. Noted. Adjust shields as needed. Nothing will stop our arrival. Back on Earth, Major Walker watched the main screen in the control center as the alien fleet approached the outer edge of their trap. Representatives from every major nation stood around him, tense and silent. They're entering the first phase of the radiation field, a technician announced. Walker nodded. Status of all satellites? Operational and ready, sir. Dr. Miller stood nearby, biting her lip nervously. The effect will be subtle at first. We don't want them to realize what's happening until it's too late. Walker turned to the assembled leaders. Once we activate the full system, there's no turning back. If this doesn't work, we have no other defense that can stop them before they reach Earth. The President of the United States stepped forward. The world stands united, Major. Proceed with the plan. Walker took a deep breath and turned to Dr. Miller. Activate Phase 1. She typed commands into her terminal. Phase 1 activated. Radiation levels increasing by 10%. On the screen, the alien fleet continued its steady approach, now entering deeper into the web of satellites surrounding the path to Mars. Aboard the Dominion flagship, a warning light flashed on a control panel. Commander, called the systems officer, we're experiencing minor fluctuations in our communication array. Vex looked unconcerned. Source? Appears to be solar radiation. Unusual patterns, but nothing our shields can't handle. Is it affecting our course? Negative, Commander. Just causing some signal noise. Vex dismissed the issue with a wave. Proceed as planned. Increase speed. I want to reach the third planet. Ahead of schedule. The officer hesitated. Commander, I recommend caution. These radiation patterns are unusual. Are you suggesting this primitive species can affect space itself? Vex laughed harshly. They barely leave their own planet. Increase speed as ordered. In the Earth Control Center, a technician looked up excitedly. Sir, they're increasing speed. They're heading deeper into the trap. Walker exchanged glances with Colonel Jones. They think they're safe. Jones nodded with satisfaction. Pride. Before the fall, Dr. Miller studied her readings. The satellites are registering effects on their outer ships. Small power fluctuations, communication disruptions. Nothing major yet. When do we hit them with full power? Walker asked. When they reach this point. Miller pointed to an area just before Mars orbit. That's where the radiation field is strongest, and where the moon base can add its power too. Walker looked at the screen, where tiny dots representing the alien ships moved closer to the invisible trap. How long? At their increased speed? About 12 hours. The president spoke quietly. 12 hours to determine the fate of humanity. Walker nodded grimly. The trap is set. Now we wait. Throughout the world, people looked up at the night sky. They couldn't see the alien ships or the battle about to take place far out in space. But they knew their future hung in the balance. In homes and streets, in churches and temples, humans prayed, hoped, and waited. For the first time in history, all of humanity faced the same threat, shared the same fear, and hoped for the same victory. Out in space between Jupiter and Mars, the mighty Dominion fleet raced forward, unaware that they were flying into a trap set by the primitive humans they had come to conquer. The clever trap was about to be sprung. The control room at Earth Defense Initiative headquarters was silent, except for the soft beeping of computers. Major Walker stood with his hands behind his back, watching the main screen. The alien fleet was now deep in the radiation web, approaching. Mars orbit. Time to full trap activation? Walker asked. 1 hour, sir, replied a technician. They'll reach the primary target zone at 0700 hours. Dr. Miller worked at her station, checking and rechecking her calculations. The radiation levels are already affecting their outer ships, she reported. We're seeing energy fluctuations, consistent with system interference. Colonel Jones nodded with satisfaction. They still don't realize what's happening. They think it's just normal solar activity. Walker's face remained serious. We get one shot at this. When we activate the full trap, they'll know they're under attack. The president entered the room, followed by leaders from other major nations. They had gathered to witness humanity's stand against the invaders. Are we ready, Major? The president asked. Walker nodded. As ready as we'll ever be, sir. On the screen, the alien fleet continued its steady approach toward Mars, unaware of what awaited them. Commander Vex frowned as another warning light flashed on his control panel. This was the third in the past hour. What now? He demanded. Deo, systems officer, looked concerned. Communications are experiencing increased interference, Commander. Several of our escort ships report navigation issues. Cause? Still appears to be solar radiation, but... The officer hesitated. But what? Vex snapped. The pattern seems too consistent. It's affecting specific systems in predictable ways. Vex's frown deepened. Are you suggesting this is deliberate? I'm not sure, Commander. It seems unlikely the primitives could affect space itself this way. Vex studied the system maps. They were approaching the fourth planet, a small, red world. The radiation seemed strongest in this region. Scan those satellites orbiting the fourth planet again, he ordered. Yes, Commander. Scanning now. Vex walked to the front viewport, watching as Mars grew larger in the distance. Behind it, the blue planet, their target, was just a small dot. Soon it would be another conquest for the Dominion. The science officer's voice interrupted his thoughts. Commander, those satellites, they're not just observation devices. They're emitting energy patterns that match the radiation affecting our ships. Vex spun around. What? Are you saying these primitives are attacking us? Yes, Commander. And there's more. The radiation is specifically targeting frequencies our systems use. This is not random. This is a weapon designed against us. For the first time, Vex felt a flicker of concern. Destroy those satellites, now. In the Earth Control Center, alarms began to sound. They're firing on our satellites near Mars, a technician shouted. Walker leaned forward. They figured it out. Activate the trap now, full power. Dr. Miller's fingers flew across her keyboard. Activating all satellites simultaneously. Moonbase, stand by for your part. On the main screen, they watched as several satellites near Mars disappeared, destroyed by alien weapons. Too late, Colonel Jones said with a grim smile. They're already surrounded. Dr. Miller pressed the final command key. Trap activated. Full radiation surge. Now. On the moon, Jack Stone and his team watched their monitors light up with the activation signal. This is it, Jack called out. Activate the lunar arrays, full power. The massive panels outside the base hummed to life, focusing concentrated radiation toward the alien fleet. Combined with the satellite web, it created a massive, invisible, Field of energy specifically tuned to disrupt alien technology. Direct hit, Lisa reported. We're reading massive energy spikes across their fleet. Jack watched the readings with intensity. Keep it steady. Don't let up. Aboard the Dominion flagship, chaos erupted. Warning alarms blared from every station as systems began failing across the ship. What's happening? Vex shouted over the noise. Massive radiation surge, the science officer yelled back. It's everywhere, coming from all directions. The view screen flickered and went dark. Emergency lights activated, bathing the bridge in red. Weapon systems failing, reported a tactical officer. Shields down to 60% and dropping. Vex gripped his command chair as the ship shuddered. Evasive maneuvers, get us out of this radiation field. Navigation is compromised, Commander. And... The officer paused, looking at his readings with disbelief. We're also being hit from behind. There's another radiation source coming from... their moon. Vex slammed his fist down. Impossible. How could these primitives create such a weapon? Around the flagship, smaller ships began drifting out of formation as their systems failed. Some lost power completely, floating helplessly in space. Commander, our biomechanical interfaces are being affected, the medical officer reported urgently. Crew members connected to ship systems are reporting pain and disorientation. For the first time in his long career of conquest, Commander Vex felt fear. These humans were not the helpless primitives he had expected. They had set a trap, and the Dominion fleet had flown right into it. Back on Earth, the control room erupted in cheers as data streamed in. It's working, Dr. Miller exclaimed. Their ships are losing power and control. The main screen showed the alien fleet in disarray. Ships drifted out of formation, some spinning slowly as their navigation systems failed. They're more vulnerable than we expected, Colonel Jones observed. Their biological systems must be partially integrated with their technology. Walker turned to the weapons officer. Are our long-range missiles ready? Yes, sir. Primed and targeted. Walker looked to the president, who nodded his approval. Launch missiles, Walker ordered. Target their main ships first. Across Earth, missile silos opened. The largest rockets ever built by humans roared to life, climbing into the sky on columns of flame. Their target, the now vulnerable alien fleet near Mars. Commander Vex struggled to maintain control as systems continued to fail around him. Reroute emergency power to shields and propulsion, he ordered. We need to get out of this radiation field. Trying, Commander, but the officer was cut off as a new alarm sounded. Multiple objects approaching from the third planet, announced the tactical officer. High speed, appears to be missiles. Vex's eyes widened. Intercept them. Weapon. Systems are compromised. We can't get a lock. Vex stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The supposedly primitive humans had not only created an effective trap, but were now launching a coordinated attack. All ships, defensive formation, he commanded. But many ships couldn't respond, their communication systems dead or dying in the radiation field. The first missile struck one of the smaller ships, destroying it completely. More followed, targeting the largest vessels in the fleet. Abandon the conquest plan, Vex ordered. All functional ships, retreat beyond the radiation field. We'll regroup and return with a larger force. But even as he gave the order, Vex knew many ships wouldn't make it. The radiation was too strong, the missiles too accurate. The mighty Dominion fleet, which had conquered countless worlds, was being defeated by a species they had severely underestimated. In the Earth Control Center, Walker watched as the alien fleet tried to retreat. Several of their ships are attempting to escape the radiation field, reported a technician. Maintain radiation levels, Walker ordered, and continue missile strikes. Don't let their command ships escape. Dr. Miller studied her readings. The radiation is still building. The combined effect of all satellites in the moon base is creating a cascading reaction. It's becoming self-sustaining. Colonel Jones looked up sharply. Self-sustaining? Is that dangerous for us? Miller shook her head. No. It's contained to the specific frequencies that affect their technology, but it means they can't escape easily. The field will follow them until it naturally dissipates. On the main screen, they watched as more alien ships lost power. Some were hit by missiles, exploding in brilliant flashes against the blackness of space. Others drifted helplessly, all systems dead. The president stepped forward, his face solemn but hopeful. "Is it possible? Are we winning?" Walker nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. I believe we are." Humanity had done the impossible, using ingenuity instead of matching the aliens' advanced technology. They had turned the solar system itself into a weapon. The battle for Earth had begun, and humans were winning. The battle near Mars continued for hours. In the Earth Defense Initiative control room, exhausted staff watched as the alien fleet fell apart piece by piece. "Status report," Major Walker said, his voice hoarse from giving orders. 80% of alien vessels show no power signatures," replied a technician. "Their main ships are badly damaged. No signs of organized resistance." Dr. Miller looked up from her station. "The radiation field is holding steady. Any ship that tries to leave is immediately affected." Colonel Jones studied the tactical display. "They're done. They can't fight, and they can't run." A cheer began to spread through the control room. It started quietly with a few people and quickly grew until everyone was shouting and hugging each other. Tears flowed freely. People who had been strangers days ago now embraced like old friends. The president raised his hands, calling for quiet. When the room settled, he spoke solemnly. "This appears to be a victory, but let's not celebrate too soon. Major Walker, what is your assessment?" Walker straightened his tired shoulders. "Sir, the alien fleet has been neutralized. They pose no immediate threat to Earth. However," he paused, looking at the screens showing disabled alien ships. "We need to decide what to do with the survivors." A heavy silence fell over the room. In the excitement of survival, few had considered what would come next. Commander Vex lay on the floor of his flagship's bridge. Emergency lights cast an eerie red glow over the scene of destruction. Half his crew were unconscious or dead, their biomechanical implants overloaded by the radiation. The ship drifted powerless, spinning slowly in the emptiness between Mars and Earth. Through a viewport, Vex could see other Dominion vessels in similar states. Dark, lifeless hulks, where proud warships had been. "How?" he whispered to himself. "How did primitives do this?" The science officer crawled to his side, badly injured but conscious. "They used our own technology against us, Commander. The radiation, they found our weakness." Vex stared at the small blue planet visible in the distance. It looked so harmless, so small, yet it had produced beings capable of defeating the mighty Dominion fleet. "Send the distress signal," Vex ordered weakly. "The Dominion must be warned." "Communications are dead, Commander," the officer replied. "Nothing works." For the first time in his long life of conquest, Vex understood defeat. The humans would come for them now. The Conquerors had become the conquered. On the moon base, Jack Stone and his team monitored the effectiveness of their radiation arrays. "We did it," Lisa said, her voice filled with wonder. "We actually did it," Jack nodded, watching the screens showing the disabled alien fleet. "Looks like Earth is sending ships to investigate the alien vessels. They want to capture their technology." "What will happen to the aliens?" someone asked. Jack's face grew serious. "That's not for us to decide, but I imagine we'll learn a lot from them and their ships." He looked up at Earth through the base's window. The blue planet seemed more precious than ever. "One thing's for sure," he said quietly. "Everything changes. From today, humanity knows we're not alone and we know we can defend ourselves." 3 months later, Major Walker stood in a massive hangar at Area 51. Before him was the partially disassembled command ship of the alien fleet. Scientists and engineers crawled over it like ants, studying every piece of technology. Dr. Miller approached, carrying a tablet. "Amazing news, Tom. The propulsion system works on principles we barely understood before. With this knowledge, we could reach nearby stars within a decade. Walker nodded. And the weapons? Equally advanced. But honestly, our radiation trick was more effective than anything they had. They never expected to be vulnerable. They walked together through the hangar, past pieces of alien technology being carefully studied. What about the prisoners? Walker asked quietly. Miller's face grew serious. They're cooperating mostly. Their commander, Vex, still refuses to speak, but others are providing valuable information. Such as? Miller stopped walking. Tom, they've conquered dozens of worlds, and the Dominion is much larger than just this fleet. They'll send others when they realize what happened. Walker frowned. How long do we have? Years, probably. The Dominion is vast, but communication between stars takes time. We need to be ready when they come. Walker looked around at the alien technology. Then we better learn fast. 1 year after the battle, the United Nations Space Command held a ceremony at their new headquarters. Representatives from every nation gathered to witness the unveiling of humanity's new defense fleet. 6 ships floated in orbit above Earth, visible on the huge screens in the ceremonial hall. They were unlike anything humans had built before, a perfect blend of Earth design and alien technology. The president stood at the podium addressing the crowd. 1 year ago, we faced extinction. Aliens came to conquer Earth, believing us to be primitive and helpless. They never reached Mars. The crowd applauded, many with tears in their eyes as they remembered the fear of those days. Today we unveil the Guardian Fleet. Using technology recovered from the alien ships combined with the ingenious radiation weapons that saved us, these vessels will protect Earth from any future threats. On the main screen, the ships activated their engines, glowing with blue energy. But we will not just defend, we will explore. The stars are no longer beyond our reach. Within 5 years, the first human expedition will leave our solar system. The applause was thunderous. In his new office at the Space Command, Major Tom Walker, now Admiral Walker, looked at a star map covering one wall. Small lights indicated the locations of known Dominion worlds, based on information from the captured aliens. Colonel Jones, now his second-in-command, studied the map with him. They'll come eventually, Jones said. The Dominion won't forget what happened here. Walker nodded. I'm counting on it, but next time we won't be waiting inside our solar system. He pointed to locations beyond the solar system. We'll have early warning stations here, here, and here, and the Guardian fleet will be ready. Jones smiled slightly. From nearly conquered to preparing our own defenses among the stars. Not bad for 1 year's work. Walker turned to the window, looking up at the night sky. The universe just got a lot smaller and a lot more dangerous, but humanity has proven one thing. What's that? Jones asked. That we belong out there, and anyone who thinks we're easy prey is making a deadly mistake. In the depths of space far beyond Pluto, a small probe drifted silently. It was the first of hundreds that would form humanity's early warning network. On its side was a simple message in multiple languages, including the Dominion script learned from the prisoners. It read, "This system is protected. Approach in peace or not at all." Inside the probe, advanced sensors watched the stars, ready to alert Earth to any approach. The message was clear to any who might come with conquest in mind. Earth was no longer an easy target. They had come to conquer Earth, but were killed by humans before they reached Mars. Any others who tried would meet the same fate. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, not as victims but as equals ready to defend their home. As Admiral Walker had said at the launch of the Guardian Fleet, "Today we put the stars on notice. Humanity has arrived."